Good afternoon and welcome to live proceedings from the National Assembly. It is Tuesday, the 5th day of the month of March. The year is 2019, and in a short while we shall be linking up with members of the National Assembly as they execute their mandate, that of formulating legislations this afternoon. They are expected to put the question to a motion on a report by the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the 2019-2020 budget policy statement. It was delivered here in the House by the Chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. And some of the recommendations of that committee in their report is that a ceiling be capped on all three arms of government for the financial year 2019-2020, that Parliament gets 39.501 billion shillings, Judiciary 18.937 billion shillings, the Executive be allocated 1.766.363 billion shillings, and that the 2019-2020 budget financing for the medium term be set at 2.06 trillion shillings for 2019-2020, 2020-2021, 2021-2022, and the 2022-2023 financial years. This particular report also recommends allocations to the county governments for the financial year 2019-2020, such that the county government equitable share of 310 billion shillings be approved, and that there should be further conditional allocations from the national government for equitable share of revenue to cater for leasing of medical equipment at 6.2 billion shillings, compensation for user fees that will be forgone, money allocated to level 5 hospitals, rehabilitation of village polytechnics, and that this total allocation to county governments be capped at 371.6 billion shillings. The Budget and Appropriations Committee also recommends an allocation in the Equalization Fund of 5.8 billion shillings to be approved and shared as per recommendations stipulated in the budget policy statement. Also expected, amendments to the county government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of the year 2017, that seeks to amend several acts in that particular piece of legislation in order to spell out what should happen in the county governments once elections are done. A live broadcast brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
Honourable members, there will be a communication relating to the forwarding of a name of a nominee. a little later. But this is a message from the Senate. Honourable members, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 41, I wish to report to the House that I have received 6 messages from the Senate regarding the passage of the following bills. 1, the Petroleum Bill, National Assembly Bill number 48 of 2017. 2, the Energy Bill, National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2017. 3, the Copyright Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 33 of 2017. 4, the Irrigation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2017. 5, the Public-Private Partnership Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 52 of 2017. And 6, the Urban Areas and Cities Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 4 of 2017. Honourable members, the Energy Bill 2017 and the Petroleum Bill 2017 were passed by the Senate on Wednesday, 20th February 2019 in the form passed by the National Assembly on 7th June 2018 and 12th June 2018, respectively. In this regard, I will now proceed to present the 2 bills to His Excellency the President for assent in accordance with the provisions of Article 109 of the Constitution. Honourable members, similarly, the Senate on Wednesday, 20th February 2019, also considered and concurred with the National Assembly's amendments to the Urban Areas and Cities Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 4 of 2017, thereby completing the bicameral processing of the said bill. This being a Senate bill, it follows.
Allowed him to sit the exams on 11th of December 2017. That on 9th February 2018, results were released, but Mr. Odongo never got official communication from the board, as is the rule, on whether he had passed or failed. That on 26th February 2018, he went to school to check his results, and after numerous failed attempts, he confirmed that he had a pass. However, to date, he has not received official communication from the registrar of the board that Mr. Odongo needs to be issued with a practicing certificate to enable him scout for jobs. That efforts to resolve the matter have been futile. That the matter in respect of which his petition is made is not pending before any court of law or constitutional body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Education and Research, A, investigates into the matter with a view to addressing the petitioner's plight, B, recommends that the ministry aligns its programs to required standards, and C, makes any other recommendations it deems fit in the circumstances of this matter, and your humble petitioners will ever pray. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. See, the member for Kathiani, you have an intervention.
Thank you, Speaker. I wanted to also support that petition by my colleague. And Mr. Speaker, on this issue of petitions, Mr. Speaker, I also wish to seek your guidance. Because it is true, Mr. Speaker, that these House members present petitions on behalf of petitioners, and it's important that committees do carry out the mandate for which they are given in matters of petitions. Mr. Speaker, I have in mind a petition that I presented in this House, which I have questioned in the past, and this was where petitioners were asking for payment from the government for something that happened very many years ago. They were victims of a school tragedy, fire tragedy, and they were supposed to be, they've questioned the National Assembly to assist them so that they can be able to be awarded or paid by the courts as the court had awarded. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, when I presented this petition in the House, when I received the report that was chaired in this House, tabled on 4th of December, Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate that the committee has not addressed any of the concerns of the petitioners, Mr. Speaker, because their conclusion is that the committee should invite the Attorney General. And Mr. Speaker, that is a conclusion which is being brought to me to present to the petitioners. I don't know whether they were meant to have met the AG and given a response. One of the other recommendations, Speaker, is that they're asking that I present this petition in the form of a question. So, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted you to guide the House. What happens when we have a petition and the petitioners are not answered by the committees? What recourse do we have? Can we resubmit so that the petition goes back to the relevant committees? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Member for Nandi, Member for Nandi, you have an intervention on this. If you have an intervention, you can use the dispatch box. Honorable Kitel, and notice that you had an intervention. Yes, I noticed that you had press the intervention button. You can use the dispatch box. Honorable Ketel, it is, now, you had pressed the intervention box, or button, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Matter is coming after the messages. It is still an intervention.
It's not at this point. I think the matter raised by the Honorable Mbue is a matter that will need to be considered by the House Business Committee. And I would direct that the clerk places it before the House Business Committee this evening to deliberate and come up with a way forward. Because the Honorable Mbue had approached me last week indicating his dissatisfaction with what had been the conclusion by the committee in terms of what you have just raised. But if you have written it somewhere, you can give the clerk a copy of the letter you have written so that the House Business Committee can look at it this evening. Very well, honourable members, before we proceed, allow me to recognize the presence in the Speaker's Gallery of students from the following institutions and those in the public gallery. Students from Kabarak High School, Rongai constituency, Nakuru County, and those from St. Angela's Girls High School, Kitui Central constituency, Kitui County. Those from Kericho D Secondary School, Ainamoi constituency, Kericho County. Those from Kiaibabu Primary School, Githunguri constituency, Kiambu County. Diamond Academy at the River constituency, Machakos County. Kiamutugu Boys from Gishugu constituency, Kirinyaga County. And finally, those from Naivasha Girls, Naivasha constituency, Nakuru County. They are all welcome to observe the proceedings this afternoon. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, in the afternoon sitting. One, sessional paper number 1 of 2019 on a policy framework for the reforming education and training for sustainable development in Kenya from the Ministry of Education. 2, a framework for formulating a national land policy for Kenya, concept paper from the National Land Commission. 3, the Draft Law Society of Kenya, General Regulations 2019, and the explanation memorandum from the Law Society of Kenya. 4, the annual report and financial statements of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, KNCHR, for the period 2016-2017. 5th, the report of the Auditor General on financial statements and the certificate therein for the year that ended 30th June 2018 in respect of the following. A, Unclaimed Asset Authority.
Another border rider, Silas Okeromi Ogugu of Nyaganchama village, also escaped death after he was shot by a police officer. On 3rd March 2019, a Propox driver, Charles Chuma Nyaisu from Maraba village, was shot by a police officer only to die hours later while undergoing treatment at Kisi Level 5. Honorable Speaker, the above incidents have denied families their breadwinners and have left behind widows, orphans, and disabled men. While we wait to see justice done through the courts, I could like the Ministry of Interior and the Coordination of National Government to act expeditiously to halt this trend, take stern measures against the culprits, and ensure the police execute their rightful mandate of protecting and not killing innocent citizens. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Next statement, the Honorable Aisha Jumwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 84, I wish to make a personal statement regarding the purported discharge by my party, the Orange Democratic Movement, for alleged disloyalty. The ODM party, which I am a member of, has enjoyed fanatic following in Malindi and the larger coast region, thanks to the party's people-centered leadership and precept of democracy. Honorable Speaker, one of our greatest sons of Coast region, Honorable Ronald Ngala, was elected in the Legislative Council in 1957. He unified not only the Coast people, but the whole nation at large. He overcame the political party barriers in his quest to ensure this nation remains one and indivisible. I pay tribute to him, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Chapter 4 of the Constitution provides for rights and fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech and freedom of association. Let it be on record that Hon Aisha Jumwa supported the handshake spearheaded by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. I believe that it is an important rallying call for all Kenyans to embrace each other. It is an opportunity for us to come together, work together, walk together, and develop this country together. Further, the Building Bridges initiative, which calls for dialogue among Kenyans, it opened a new chapter in our political history. Honorable Speaker, when the history books shall be written, I believe that future generations will read that they lived a heroine who stood for a genuine handshake. They will read that Aisha Jumwa stood for true building bridges and practiced true spirit of togetherness. Above all, they will read that Aisha Jumwa stood against hypocrisy, ethnicity, despicable gender dehumanization, and against party extremism. Honorable Speaker, I wish to categorically state that I have been unjustly condemned for building bridges with my fellow Kenyans and urge that great people of Malindi and the Coast region to remain calm. I echo the civil rights movement of US in 60s. I will overcome. Thank you, honorable colleagues and members, for standing with me. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honourable members, the Honourable Aisha Jumwa stood under standing order number 84, and therefore there can be no debate. It's a personal statement. There is no debate. No. There can be no debate on a personal statement. You know, I will firmly implement and ensure that our standing orders are followed. So it's a personal statement. There can be no debate. Honourable members, I did indicate to you that I will be delivering another message, which is a message number 3, 2019, from the President. Pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 42, I wish to convey the following message from His Excellency the President regarding nomination of a person for appointment as a Cabinet Secretary for Education. In the message, President conveys that in exercise of powers conferred by Article 152, Clause 2 of the Constitution, run together with Sections 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, he nominates Professor George Albert Omore Magoha for appointment to the office of the Cabinet Secretary for Education. Honourable members, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 204, subsection 4, I hereby refer the message together with the curriculum vitae of the nominee to the Committee on Appointments for consideration. Honourable members, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act provides that unless otherwise provided in law, the committee to which such nomination is referred shall consider the matter and table a report in the House within 14 days from the date of notification. It is therefore imperative that the committee immediately commences the process of the consideration of approval of the nominee to enable speedy conclusion within the said timelines. For avoidance of doubt, the committee should notify the nominee and the general public of the time and place of holding approval hearings by 7th of March 2019, following which the approval hearings should commence. Thereafter, the committee should table its report in the House by March 19, 2019. I thank you, honourable members. And honourable members, I just wish to add that contrary to views expressed by some quarters, there is no nominee who's presented to the House who cannot be vetted by the House. The House as such House, because that is a constitutional requirement. And therefore, notwithstanding views that could be held even in churches or such like places, the nominee, every nominee will have to be considered by the House. I thank you. Next one.
Order number 8, motion, report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the 2019-2020 budget policy statement. Question to be put.
Honourable members, Debate on this motion was concluded, and what remained is for the question to be put. And having confirmed that there is sufficient quorum, I proceed to put the question, which is that this House adopts a report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget policy statements and the debt management strategy for 2019-2020. May appoint.
Order number 10, motion, report on audited financial statements for constituencies in Kisumu County.
Honorable Kathuri, yes, you're finding difficulties there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, and I really agree with you that members have really contributed to this report more than actually almost 10 hours of this parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, all able to finish both Nairobi and Kisumu counties. And Mr. Speaker, we still be coming to you because we have another 45 counties still to go through since from 2013 to 2018. So, Mr. Speaker, the key issues that members have really discussed or have raised in this floor of the House is especially rate disbursement of funds, Mr. Speaker. Including this financial year, Mr. Speaker, we are not even 50%, and we are the third quarter. We are not yet even 50% of the NGCDF has not been discharged to the constituencies. And this, Mr. Speaker, has really affected many projects. It has also affected the disbursement of bursary funds because the students this year from primary to secondary, the government has actually achieved almost 100% transition from primary to secondary schools. And Mr. Speaker, even those who finish their KCSE, they are still waiting for funds because the target is to ensure that also from secondary, the students are able to go to the colleges and universities. So, Mr. Speaker, besides the rate disbursement, members have really discussed about the allocation of the NGCDF funds. Because, Mr. Speaker, the constituencies we have are unique in one or the other. There are some constituencies with many schools, the other constituencies with the fewer schools, constituencies with high populations, others with low populations. Because the current formula, Mr. Speaker, is that all the funds that we get are distributed equally among the constituencies. So, Mr. Speaker, I will request also the Honorable Malcolm Maore and the NGCDF committee of this House to look into this matter and see maybe the right formula so that members can see there is equity in this distribution. Mr. Speaker, another issue that has really come out is about the oversight committee, which is still not in place. In the regulations 2013, it was suggested that, Mr. Speaker, there must be an oversight committee, which also has no budget at the moment. Therefore, the standing committee of this House, led by Honorable Malcolm Maore, will be able also to bring some regulations to this floor of the House so that that committee can be put in place. Mr. Speaker, since this report actually all members have been able to contribute, I would like to stop there, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I'll read that, Mr. Speaker, this House adopts the third report of the Special Funds Accounts Committee on audited financial statements for the national NGCDF funds for constituencies in the county for the financial 2013 to 2018. And Mr. Speaker, I beg to move. Reply. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply.
Other members, some serious consultation happening. The member from Mohoro just walked in and immediately attracted the attention of the leader of the minority party for consultation. Very well, honourable members, I put the question, which is that this House adopts reports, the third reports of the Special Funds Accounts Committee on audited financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for constituencies in Kisumu County for the financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, and 2015-2016, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, November 28, 2018. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. The member for Eldama Ravine, you are alone. Very well, honourable members, as are dedicated, the reorganization of business was merely to accommodate that particular business to be transacted. Move to order number 9.
Order number 9, Committee of the Whole House.
Order, members, order, members, order. We are now considering the County Government Amendment Bill, Bill 2017. And honorable members, let's be keen because we'll be moving fast.
Clause 2.
I propose the question which is at clause 2 be part of the bill. I put the question which is at clause 2 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 3.
I propose the question which is at clause 3 be part of the bill. And I see we have a proposed amendment by Honorable Amos Kimunya.
Mr. Chairman, I wish to propose that clause 3 be deleted and substituted with the following clause, that the Principal Act is amended by inserting the following new section immediately after section 7A, and this 7B, 1, which states that whenever there's a new county assembly, the President by notice in the Gazette shall appoint the place and date for the first sitting of every new county assembly, which shall not be more than 30 days after the election. The part 2 is basically the same as what is existing. Mr. Chairman, as members will note, the President has several functions. One, he will act as the head of the executive. 2, the President is also the head of state. And as head of state, he acts on behalf of the people. So when the President calls for the first sitting of Parliament, he's basically acting on behalf of the people and not as the head of the executive, because the executive and the assembly and the judiciary are supposed to be independent bodies. Now, this power is contained within Article 126 of the Constitution, which basically gives the President the power to appoint the date and place of the first sitting of the House. But when we now go to Chapter 11 of the Constitution, which now deals with the county assemblies and county government, this was omitted. And we tried to capture it in 2012 through the County Government Act. But by some mistake,
and I think that's the error we want to cure here with this amendment, we assumed that the president as head of state is represented at the county level by the governor. But the governor is the chief executive of the county government, of the county, not the head of state of the county. So he has no power to then call on behalf of the people for the county assembly to sit, which county assembly is then required within Article 185 of the Constitution to oversight him. And I think, Mr. Chairman, the reason I brought this amendment is then to bring in tandem that what was provided in Article 126(2) of the Constitution in terms of the power to convene a parliament should be the same to convene all assemblies, because at that point the president is acting as head of state, not as president, not as the chief executive of the executive branch. So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask the House that we write this anomaly that we created in 2012, and now...
No, it's possible. You know, we are talking about a presidential system of government where assemblies and even the national parliament must be independent of the executive. So we have now a law where the governor and the speaker of the county assembly will consult on the venue and the first time that they will sit. The same is with the speaker of the National Assembly and the president. So I don't see the reason why we are seen, and this is a week where there's a devolution conference. We should not make legislation that weakens devolution. So I really want my neighbor leader is telling me, Honorable Gumunya should go to the conference. No, Honorable Gumunya is sitting here on behalf of the people of Kipipiri, and he is legislating. I mean, he has no business in the devolution, but we should not be seen in the week of devolution that we are the ones now who are weakening legislation. Amos Kimunya is a very good friend of mine and the man who really helps me on the committee of the whole house. I really beg him to drop that amendment. It's good, but I oppose.
Okay, then we will have Honorable Mbui, member for Kadiani.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, you said the leaders have spoken and ordinary members will speak. So I've just realized the office of deputy leader seems not to be. but Chair, I do support the leader of majority and the leader of minority, because
you say you are
the deputy leader of the minority party.
Okay, then you don't have the floor. I'll give an honorable member for. It obviously was an oversight. Yes, you know that I had said the next will be those who are not leaders, ordinary members, and he's not an ordinary member. And on his own admission, he has denied himself an opportunity to speak. So we will give the member, honorable member. I can't see your name here, but have your floor anyway.
Fondewa, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I think leaders have a real point, and I see Kimunya there.
I said ordinary members, not nominate ordinary members. Proceed.
It's kind of noting that this amendment should be withdrawn, because once it's going to bring confusion again and also going to interfere with devolution. There we have fully set executive and how they function with the county assembly, and we don't need another national interference in the arrangement. So, Kimunya, I see your face, and I think you are withdrawing this. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Now, I am having difficulty with picking a member from the government, from to my right. Honorable member for Imenti. Imenti, is it Imenti Central?
Speaker, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand to support the amendment by the member for Kipiripiri, Amos Kimunya, because the amendment, Mr. Speaker, sir.
We don't have such a member in this house. We don't have a constituency being represented by, or a constituency by the name of Pilipili, or
the one which you mentioned, Mr. Speaker, sir, being the rest. Mr. Speaker, sir, I hereby stand to support the amendment because the amendment is really well thought of. If only that my learned friends can take it with good heart and looking at the intention of the said amendment. The president is meant to be the symbol of unity in this country. And for the president to declare when the county assemblies
Order, Honorable
can assemble.
Honorable Kamket. Order. Okay, proceed.
And for the president to declare when the county assemblies can assemble and start their normal sessions, it's meant, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm being disrupted. We can't put a question where I'm contributing because it means that my contributions are being disregarded. I'm saying that the amendment is very proper because we have an experience before whereby some county assemblies, Mr. Speaker, sir, were declaring themselves to be independent from the happenings of other parts of the country. So to have the president declaring the dates of when the county assemblies can start sitting, it's not abnormal, and it's just as it is known that the president is the symbol of unity in this country. And that one is not watering devolution at all, at any cost.
Okay, let's not debate. So I will put the question, which is that clause 3 be amended as proposed by Honorable Kimunya. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The nays have it. And I put the question which is at clause 3 as clause 3 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clauses 4 and 5.
I propose a question which is at clauses 4 and 5 be part of the bill. And I put the question which is at clause 4 and 5 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 6.
I propose a question which is at clause 6 be part of the bill. Honorable Koinange. On clause 6.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, the amendment proposes to delete and substitute the entire clause 6 of the bill. Honorable Speaker, the committee has...
Are you sure you are moving the correct
I am.
Proposal? Because...
Yes, I want to justify because I want to drop...
You are clear with it?
Yes.
So proceed, Honorable Koinange.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security proposes the amendment whose effect is to remove the officer of the Deputy Speaker as envisioned in the County Government's Amendment Bill. The committee was informed by the decisions of the High Courts of Machakos and Meru in 2016 and 2017, respectively, that declare the office of the Deputy Speaker in counties invalid. However, Honorable Chair, upon further reflection and pursuant to decision by the High Court of Nyeri last week that found that the position of Deputy Speaker is valid. According to Section 178, Honorable Speaker, of the Constitution, Section 21 of the Election Act, and Section 9 in bracket 4 of the County Government Act to the effect that it cannot have been intended in the Constitution for the Speaker not to have a substantive deputy. Honorable Speaker, to that end, I have satisfied myself and my committee that the amendments may not be suitable and move to withdraw the amendment as it appears in the order paper. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
With that, I think that puts the matter to rest. I see some members are putting up their hands, others their heads. But the amendment is not before you anymore because it has been withdrawn. It was in the first place. So we will simply proceed. And now I will put the question, which is that clause 6 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 7.
Now, in this particular clause, honorable members, before I even propose a question, let me first propose the question and then give guidance on it. I propose the question which is that clause 7 be part of the bill. What Honorable Koinange proposes to do as he rises is to delete. If he succeeds with the deletion, then the other 3 members who have proposed amendments will have the amendments falling on the face. Now, that is Honorable Moses Kuria, Honorable Faith Gitau, and Honorable Kwenya Dhuku. Now, that's the first scenario. The second scenario, if Honorable Koinange's proposal fails, we will have 3 members who are proposing very similar amendments. Now, and if they will be proposing the similar amendments, the one which I consider to be a bit more inclusive is the one by Honorable Faith Gitau. So what would happen is that we'll give an opportunity to Honorable Faith Gitau to propose hers, and if it is carried, both Honorable Kuria and Honorable Dhuku Kwenya will have had their views and their proposals on board, so they will also fail. So, honorable members, I hope you have understood that. And as you proceed, Honorable Koinange, are you satisfied that what you have, the withdrawal of your clause 6, does not at all have any effect on clause 7, because still it is about election of our speaker? So what you will do, Honorable Koinange, is make it very clear, because then the members will be with you if you are clear enough. So clause 7, though it seems to me that it's also about election of a deputy speaker. But proceed. Honorable Koinange.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. The amendment proposes to delete the substantive, the entire clause 11A of the bill. Honorable Chair, that the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security proposes the amendment whose effect is to remove the office of the Deputy Speaker as envisioned in the County Government's Amendment Bill. The committee was informed by the decision of the High Courts of Machakos and Meru in 2016 and 2017, respectively, that declare the office of the Deputy Speaker in counties invalid. However, upon further reflection and pursuant to decision by the High Court of Nyeri last week that found that the position of Deputy Speaker is valid according to Section 178 of the Constitution, Section 21 of the Election Act, and Section 9 in bracket 4 of the County Government Act, to the effect that it cannot have been intended in the Constitution for the Speaker not to have a substantive deputy. Honorable Chair, to that end, I have satisfied myself and my committee that the amendments may not be suitable and move to withdraw the amendment as it appears on the order paper. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Okay, so that being the case that you have withdrawn, the rest of the membership will have a right to proceed and propose their amendments. And as I've said, we will start with Honorable, that gracious lady from Nyandarua, Honorable Faith Gitau. Now, proceed, Honorable Gitau.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to move clause 7, and I'm proposing to delete the words "at least 2/3", and this is, we are talking of the removal of a speaker. And I'm proposing to remove the at least 2/3 and replace with not less than 75% of all the members of the county assembly. Honorable Speaker, in order for any county assembly to achieve its mandate, the speaker must be self-driven and very articulate on matters registration and oversight. He should also be able to point out irregularities without fear or intimidation. We find that whenever a speaker differs with the executive principally, his impeachment or removal is normally instigated by the governors, especially when the governor agenda is questioned by the Assembly. The governors find it easy to use the nominated MCAs, who is, in the real sense, are his nominees. Unlike in Parliament, where a number of nominated MPs or senators is negligible, in assemblies, the number is quite high and can fundamentally influence the removal of a speaker.
Yeah, now, even as you proceed, Honorable Gitau, I can see you are concentrating on your proposal A Roman 1.
Yes, A Roman 1.
Now, I would have wanted you to move the whole of it.
Yes.
Then when I propose the question,
yes,
I'll first give opportunity to the members who had made similar proposals, so that they probably can buttress your case. So that if that one of you has failed, then the rest of them fall with you.
Should write to the Senate, and the Senate should also should immediately convene a special meeting, a special committee comprising of 11 members to investigate the matter. And if the special committee by the Senate finds out that whatever was written by the Deputy Speaker is not substantiated, further proceedings shall not be taken under this section in respect
of a proposed amendment. But I wish to oppose the amendment. And the Chair, for the same reason that Honorable Faith has actually given, you can actually abuse the position of Speaker if, for instance, you have a Speaker who then takes the nominated MCAs hostage, as has happened in Homa Bay County. So if you raise the bar, Chairman, then it means you will be having a person who is rogue, who is not subject to any authority or rule. Chairman, what we should be having, the counties should be a mirror at the national level. And if you have at the national level, we have this standard. Why do we want to shield a speaker at the county level? Have they become goddess or gods? We need accountability, and they must, in fact, it should be lowered.
Please, let's be brief, because I want to give many members. I want to give many members on this one. So members, be patient. Leader of Majority Party, I'll give many more members. You don't need to worry. I'll give many members.
Chair, in fact, I want you to allow me, Chair, I want you to allow me 2 minutes, because I took 2 hours to study this amendment and prepare something. Mr. Speaker, this amendment is outrageous. The honorable member proposes that the Senate be involved in the removal of a county assembly speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Speaker of the National Assembly, who is third in ranking after the President and the Deputy President, is removed by his members through 2/3 majority in this House. Mr. Speaker, there is a scheme. There is a scheme here to undermine, number one, governors, and to profile speakers. Mr. Chairman, the difference between a speaker and a governor is elected by the people. And that is why the Senate is the referral house. But a speaker who is elected by so if the Senate disagrees with the Assembly, you are imposing a speaker to undermine. I opposed it. I talked to the Director of Legal. I had a discussion this morning, and everybody is agreeing that this amendment is mischievous, and this amendment, if you are a county speaker and you cannot get the confidence of your members, county assembly, then you pack and go. Yeah, you cannot force. The county assembly members have a right to, they are the ones who elected that speaker. So they must have a right in law to remove him.
Now, let me give, on this one, let me give Honorable Wamalwa. Let me give Honorable Wamalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, that amendment by Honorable Faith It is indeed outrageous. It is indeed in bad faith. And from the look of things, it seems it's a conspiracy of the people of Nyandarua against the governor Kimemia. Because, Mr. Chair,
don't
two legislators come from the...
I will have to protect the members. Members bring their amendments here in good faith. And once they have been processed, please, just oppose it. You don't have to impute improper motive without a substantive motion.
Chair, I say that because when I was looking at the similar amendment and the people behind it, both of them are coming from the Nyandarua County, Mr. Chair. So I have a right maybe to say that. But having said that, Mr. Chair, whatever goes on, whatever goes on in the county...
Order. Now that you have mentioned Honorable Faith in bad faith, so I will give an opportunity. What's your point of order, Honorable Faith?
I am very disappointed with my friend because I registered for the people of Nyandarua, and we have seen so many speakers being impeached. We've never had any in Nyandarua, so please withdraw.
Well, I really think I have to agree with Honorable Gitau Faith. Really, I mean, we cannot have us throwing words at our own colleagues when they are legislating. She is perfectly in order. She's gone through the rigors of preparing. So please, just withdraw that bit and proceed.
I had said, Honorable Faith brought this amendment in bad faith. Honorable Faith brought the amendment in bad faith. That's what I meant.
No, what I want you to do... What I want... just withdraw it on record. And of course, do the necessary after the withdrawal. You have to apologize. Apologize, Honorable. You know, Honorable Amalwa. Thank you. Proceed now. You are a senior member yourself, and the chair of Catholic members of Parliament. You know that you must exercise. And you are a big man. Proceed.
I'm a man of faith, and even the governor of Nyandarua is a Catholic.
You see?
For information.
So you are
now,
representing...
Chair, having said that, Chair, we borrow from international standards. This two-thirds majority, Chair, it is something that is in many jurisdictions. And the county assemblies are supposed to borrow from the National Assembly. And it's the practice in the National Assembly. Recently, Mr. Chair, when we were looking for the two-thirds, when it came to the women bill, we have failed terribly. So two-thirds is already a very high threshold, Madam Chair. In fact, some of us were thinking, when you go for a referendum, maybe we should reduce the threshold. So if two-thirds you cannot achieve, and here you are proposing that we go to 75%, then, Chair, you want to have speakers who are going to be rogue, and removing them is going to be an impossibility.
I stand to oppose the proposed amendment. As my colleagues have said so, I think it's not a well-founded amendment. It could be aimed at other intentions. Mr. Chair, Article 106 of the Constitution of Kenya and subsection 2C clearly says the threshold for the national speaker are two-thirds majority. We must remain consistent in all our legislative process so that we retain two-thirds majority.
Okay.
Secondly, Mr. Chair,
why don't you leave it at the first one only, so that we can have other members speaking? So let's have the very old member of this house, Honorable Jimmy Nuru Ondiek Angwenyi. And I'll still give two other members.
Thanks,
so,
Mr.
please.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, naweza kutuma hao mate wakae hapa miaka mingi. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose the amendment being proposed by the honorable member from Nyandarua. The honorable members from Nyandarua. We are not making a law
there is only one amendment. And Jimmy, you know you are a seasoned politician. There is only one amendment before the House, and that is by Honorable Faith Gitau.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Speaker, proposes to delete and substitute paragraph A of clause 11 of the bill. Honorable Speaker, The proposal aims to ensure that the proposed amendment does not contradict provisions of Article 48 of the Constitution relating to fair administrative action by requiring the governor to give reasons for dismissing a county executive member. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the amendment as it appears in the order paper.
So I propose a question which is at clause 11 be amended as proposed by Honorable Koinange. I'll give two members, the Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I rise to support this amendment because it makes a lot of sense. Mr. Chairman, it is important that when you are dismissed from office, the reasons why you have been dismissed are clearly stated and are applicable, because you might just be dismissed and there is no reason. So I support this. It's
okay.
Important.
Honorable Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The operative word here, Mr. Speaker, is may dismiss. Therefore, it's not mandatory. And again, appropriate reasons for the said dismissal are given. And I think that's a sufficient threshold when you want to sack an executive member who's wayward. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So I put the question which is that clause 11 be amended as proposed by Honorable Koinange. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. And I put the question which is at clause 11 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clauses 12, 13, and 14.
I propose the question which is at clauses 12 through to 14 be part of the bill. And I put the question which is at clause 12, 13, and 14 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 15.
I propose the question which is at clause 15 be part of the bill. Honorable Koinange.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I beg to move that clause 15 be amended as indicated in the order paper. Honorable Speaker, the amendment proposes to delete and substitute clause 15 of the bill. And Honorable Speaker, clause 15 seeks to provide the recruitment procedure of a county secretary by a selection panel. The proposed amendment seeks to make the position of the county secretary independent. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the amendment as it appears in the order paper.
So I propose a question which is at clause 15 be amended as proposed by Honorable Koinange. Leader of Majority Party.
Speaker, I really want to thank Honorable Koinange. Very competent chair and his committee.
The legislation will be very untidy. Because I could see, I noticed that there was an attempt by the committee to comply with the courts in Machakos and another one. Yet this matter had not even been appealed against and gone to the Supreme Court. Maybe we need to come out clearly as a House that unless there is an order, a court order asking Parliament for specific action, we need not to make attempts to amend the law on the basis of just any other ruling.
That's really the position. And I hope the chair, administration and security is hearing that, because really, even when the order is made, there are ways which we can adopt it. So we really cannot legislate. We cannot be legislating at the behest of our courts. Did I see Honorable? Now, I see most of the members who are actually interested in speaking have already spoken. So I'm having a problem with giving any of them. That clause is gone. So let us move on. No. So I put the question which is at clause 25 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 6A.
A new clause. Is Honorable Kuria in the House? Well, he must be in Kirinyaga attending. So that one is dropped. So we'll move to the next one.
title.
I propose that the question that the title be the title to the bill. And I put the question which is that the title be the title to the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next.
Clause 1.
Propose the question which is at clause 1 be part of the bill. And I put the question which is at clause 1 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. And that brings us, honorable members, to the end of that particular business. So I will put the question. No, let me call the mover to move reporting first.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I beg to move that the committee to do report to the House is consideration of the County Government's Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, and its approval thereof with amendments.
Very well. So I put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, and its approval thereof with amendments. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Order.
Members, Mr. Speaker.
Chairperson. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, and approved the same with amendments.
That's it. The mover?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2017, be now read a third time. I also request Honorable Duale to second.
The Honorable Chair, were you at the right place, really?
Yeah.
Royal, you are done? Royal, just hold on, the Honorable Leader of Majority. Chairperson, you need to, that the House do agree.
House do agree. Do agree with the committee, the report I require.
That the House do agree.
Okay. Yeah,
thank
thank you.
Repeat it so that it's clear.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I also request Honorable Duale to second the motion for agreement with the report of the committee of the whole House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Duale?
I second.
Broel? Honorable members, for good reason that we don't have the requisite numbers, we will leave it there. We'll do it. Then we'll take the necessary action on this at the next time that the matter will be set down for consideration. I direct that we move to the next order of business.
Order number 11, motion, report on the disbursement of funds to the National Government Constituency Development Fund.
Yes, the chair of the CDF committee, the Honorable Maoka Maure.
Mr. Speaker, you recall that we have done quite some issues regarding the CDF and the disbursement on these members. And I know many were looking forward to this motion on the report. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Government Constituency Development Fund is established pursuant to National Government Development Fund Act 215 or 2015. Its main objective.
The Honorable Wahungu, what is out of order?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. With due respect, Honorable Maoka Maure is an old member of this House. And there's a process, a procedure of how you move the motion. Yes. So the motion must be moved first before you come in. So can he follow the procedure? I know he's a senior member of this House.
The Honorable Amalwa, you are quite in order. The Honorable Maure, let us comply with our standing orders and the requirements of moving this motion.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Select Committee on the National Government Constituency Development Fund on the status of disbursement of funds to the National Government Constituencies Development Fund as at 22nd February 2019, laid on the table of the House on February 26, 2019. Mr. Speaker, the Section 4 of the Act, as amended, establishes the National Government Development Fund as the national fund consisting of monies of an amount not less than 2.5% of all national government share of revenue as determined by the Division of Revenue Act pursuant to Article 218 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to the provisions of the Act, the government, through National Treasury and the planning, allocated that 3,286,162,000 to fund the annual development estimates of 2018-2019 financial year. And, Mr. Speaker, the board, with approval of the National Assembly Select Committee on the CDF, determined the budget ceiling for each constituency in accordance with the Section 34, subject to the provisions of Section 8.1 and 23.1. So, the total amount allocated per constituency was 109,40,875.52 cents. And as at February 19th of 2019, the National Treasury had released shillings 12 billion. The board has so far disbursed 8,848 million to constituencies, and the remaining imbalance of 3,652 million was used to settle approved projects of previous financial years. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that there are pending arrears for previous financial years yet to be disbursed to constituencies, totaling 1,274,273,813 from the fiscal year 2010 to 2018. And that is yet to be disbursed by the National Treasury is Kenya shillings 4,976,750,000. So, Mr. Speaker, the committee resolved and amended the recommendations as follows. 1, the National Treasury should ensure that the remaining 21,286,162,000 is released by the end of March 2019 to give constituencies adequate time to absorb the funds before the closure of the financial year. And B, the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury should ensure that the 4,976,750,000, which is unremitted by the Treasury and it is owed to the board, is provided for in the next supplementary budget. C, the CDF board should, by end of March 2019, submit to the committee a comprehensive list of all incomplete projects countrywide, clearly categorizing those that have stalled because by either lie in the category of devolved functions, or were initiated without authority of the board, or were underfunded, among other reasons. The board should also suggest the way forward regarding those projects. D, funding of the incomplete projects by the constituencies to be staggered within the next 3 financial years in order to ensure that new projects that are critical to the community are adequately funded. E, constituencies with a cumulative balance of over 20 million to be invited to appear before the committee within 2 weeks to clarify on the reason for huge pending cumulative balances. Mr. Speaker, that is the members who are not spending money. We want to know what the problem is. That's why they could be having more than 20 million in their accounts. And F, the 5 constituencies, that is Shinyalo, Mbeere North, Nyeri Town, Kiharu, and Idaragwa, which are yet to submit their project proposals to the board, do comply with immediate effect. So I now invite, Mr. Speaker, Honorable, I don't think he is anywhere here, Honorable, somebody willing to second, because the member for Kiminini, Mr. Speaker, to second, because I didn't have.
Wamalu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Malcolm Maure has highlighted some of the critical issues about this issue of the CDF. Mr. Speaker, every village you go to, you'll find there's at least a project of CDF. This is a very critical, important fund that it must be followed, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy that on the schedule, he has shown how the disbursement has been done. And Mr. Speaker, as we move on, I think it's important that the CDF board and Treasury, when it comes to dispersing these funds, it should be done promptly. I'm saying this because in this particular financial year, and when schools were opening, Mr. Speaker, there was no money. The money had not yet been released. And this has brought a lot of inconveniences. We have so many bright children from poor families, Mr. Speaker, who cannot go to school, and they rely on CDF. So if you release these funds when schools have already opened, Mr. Speaker, it becomes useless. We've seen many children, particularly those who did Standard 8, and there's a specific time frame for them to join Form 1. They've lost their national positions because they didn't manage to report on time. So for future, Mr. Speaker, it's indeed important the Treasury and the CDF board must adhere to the timelines when it comes to releasing these funds. Because if you release these funds 5 months down the line, Mr. Speaker, it's going to be useless. As we speak right now, the funds that were released initially, they were mainly used for purposes of administrative, where the employment, the salaries for the employees, and majority of the members of parliament have not even released the funds when it comes to bursaries. Mr. Speaker, as we move forward, we were also calling upon those particular constituencies that have not yet released their project proposal to the CDF board to move with speed, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, this is a good fund, Mr. Speaker. How I wish that in future, we should actually increase from the 2.5% to something like 5%, because it's the only fund that is being filled. I've gone to many counties, Mr. Speaker. Even the money that goes to the county government It's not failed in some of these villages. As I aspire to become a governor, Mr. Speaker, God willing, in 2022. As I aspire, God willing, okay? I'm not declaring, I'm aspiring. You see, there's a difference between aspiring and declaring. You know, my colleague here needs to learn. There's a difference between aspiring and declaring. I'm not declaring. There's a total difference here.
The Honorable Oundo, what is out of order? You seem to be totally displeased by something. What is disturbing?
Mr. Speaker, sir, is it in order for the honorable member to come and declare his interest in the governorship on the floor of the House of the National Assembly? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Oundo, you are out of order. The Honorable Christopher Malwa, proceed.
I've been thinking Honorable Udo is a fast learner, only to realize he's a slow learner, Mr. Speaker. I didn't come here to declare. There's a difference between aspiring and declaring. Maybe they are synonyms. He needs to go refer to the English Oxford Dictionary, maybe, for further understanding. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, it is important as we move on. CDF Act has undergone a lot of transformation or metamorphosis. A lot of amendments have gone to this law, Mr. Speaker. Now it's called the NG-CDF. And it's important, Mr. Speaker, as we move forward, this fund, we should look for a framework of increasing from that particular 2.5%. And this is the highest time, Mr. Speaker, an impact study must be done, the impact analysis on how CDF has transformed villages, Mr. Speaker. When you come to my region, Mr. Speaker, for instance,
almost 30% of this fund to help the needy kids, some already in school, that if they don't flow to them, they are sent home. Some have just joined. And this piecemeal, Mr. Speaker, disbursement is a punishment to these kids. And the manner which it is released for everything, including salaries, including emergency, everything within with a small piece of disbursement can work. Like now, Mr. Speaker, the wind just blew one of the schools to the ground. There's nothing. And there is no disaster response from my county or national. So those kids are all in school. If we had emergency funds, which you usually do when this money is disbursed, we would put makeshift categories to help these kids. But they are now right at home. But the point is, Mr. Speaker, this is a lifeline for so many things, and it's not doing its job right now. The other point, Mr. Speaker, is that although the equalization was used on disbursing this or allocating these funds, it is clear that some constituencies do not have the capacity to consume. I was surprised to hear there's 12 million just lying there without being used. Mr. Speaker, it might be, it may call for a review for how this fund is being distributed. Equity, we love it, yes, but sometimes some constituencies fall in areas that have been developed and everything taken care of. But we in the rural setups, we really suffer for this. So I think maybe at some times we need to revisit that. But I agree with the mover that this, the remaining amount of money, 12 billion, so to speak, should be disbursed with immediate effect to the constituencies to rescue the situation. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask that the government in its plan and policies should synchronize. For example, we have 100% transition of kids, but we don't have where they are going to learn. In my constituency, some are learning under the tree if it rains, there's no class. And at the same time, the same government, same treasury, which is supposed to release funds to help us with the infrastructure, is delaying the funds. So why do we have this discord? If we cannot implement an initiative because we don't have money, then we better not do it. It's quite embarrassing, so to speak. So, Mr. Speaker, thank you so much. I support and I hope the board will act quickly to disburse these funds to the constituencies, especially they were.
The Honorable Iringo Kubai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to comment or to do my comments on this motion on the CDF by the chair of the committee, Honorable Maura Mauka, who happens to be my neighbor back at home. CDF, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, we have talked about it at length in different forums. There's another motion which was concluded just this afternoon, and we are talking about the CDF, which was brought by the Special Funds Chair. And the bottom line, Mr. Speaker, is that this fund is the only fund which I personally can say is felt in the grassroots, in our communities, and I thank the MPs who brought it in the last parliament. I think it's in the 8th or 7th parliament. But unfortunately, the implementers or the people who are supposed to implement this important and critical fund, maybe they don't know its seriousness, or maybe they are not serious themselves, or maybe there's somebody somewhere who is trying to sabotage the same, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we cannot talk of a fund which is supposed to help the communities and our people to develop, especially infrastructure, especially paying of school fees, funds which were committed and were budgeted for and were proposed in July last year, and today we are in March, and they have not disbursed even 30% of the same, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the piecemeal way this funds is released is becoming a problem. You cannot share it. You cannot know where to start, which project to fund, which project to complete, and more so, the users of these facilities, they're in their need of the same, Mr. Speaker. And the biggest problem we have as we talk, Mr. Speaker, is this time now around, when we are talking of the 100% transition. All the parents, all the children, and the communities are looking at the CDF. And they are looking at the MPs to put up classrooms or to see that the proposed classrooms are put in place. But it's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, these funds are not there. We're in March. And this is the time now we are releasing the bursaries to schools. And the more so, literal bursaries, because they release, this money is going in piecemeal. It is the high time, Chair CDF, crack your whip and see that the board is sufficient enough. And maybe this money, I accept there could be shortage of cash, maybe from the Treasury, KRI, or wherever the government is collecting the money. But more so, why don't they give a lump sum? Maybe 25%, maybe in September, 25% before we break for the long holidays, 25% in January, and in March, 25%. And there we go. But now we are talking of 2 months to go, and I agree with the chairman because he is pressing that this money should be disbursed by the end of this March so that we can put that money into use. Another big problem, Mr. Speaker, is once this money is released to the accounts, if the AIE has not been released, that money can remain into the constituency's account indefinitely. And to sign an AIE and disperse it to the constituency takes 2-3 weeks. Then you start wondering what is the secretariat doing. If you have released the funds, why don't you follow that money immediately with an AIE so that that money can be spent? Mr. Speaker, it took me my personal intervention to go to the CDF offices here to see why they have not dispatched the AIE. And there's a heap of them there, and they are yet to be signed, and the CEO is ever coming in and out. Chair, I think you need to look into that with your committee so that this one can be followed. Mr. Speaker, this fund again needs to be relooked, and I pray the committee can sit down now and relook into it and bring some amendments in this house which change some of the laws, Mr. Speaker. Especially those constituencies where we have got well-up people, they take their children to big schools, expensive schools, and the MP is there with the CDF board and the committee, and some of them are shopping for people to give bursaries. Or if they give even scholarships. When I'm struggling to see how I can share 20 million among 15,000 applicants. The applications you file or which are received, Mr. Speaker, if you have to give each and every person who asks for that money, and we take a lot of time to vet and know who should be given, Mr. Speaker, you will end up giving 2,000 shillings each. And what is that for a secondary education, Mr. Speaker? That is why I feel it is the high time we amended the Act and see the necessity of the poor constituencies, the most needed children, the poor areas, they get a better share, like it was before, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, let me commend the committee, but we need them to put more muscle. They should crack the whip, and we should not be lamenting in this house that there are delays, there's this problem and that. Let the committee see it even before we realize it, push it, and then maybe before we realize it, it is done. Like now, I really support that the ultimatum of end of this month, so that at least we can be able to complete the project which we had already proposed, which we had already promised to people, because our people will not understand. They won't understand there's a problem in treasury. They won't understand that the bond is not releasing money. They won't understand all these things. They are saying is the MP who is not doing what they requested for, because they believe it is the MP who does everything. They don't care of Rotich or any other issue or where the funds come from. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we should also crack the whip, because we are the ones who are being bullied down there, whereas the people who are sitting on the projects or on the money are just comfortable in their offices here in Nairobi, when we are being thrown dust at when we go into the grassroots. I support Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kubai, you would support that new formula that you propose, even if Igembe Central was to receive less than it's receiving now, I'm sure. I'm confident of that. We shall have contribution from the Honorable Amin Kasim, member for Wajir East. Yeah, yes, I think you now have the mic. Yes.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to at least articulate on the issues of the CDF. The CDF and its contribution to the well-being and the development of the various constituencies in the country is enormous. It has done significant development, particularly on the issues of education and security, particularly in those areas that we serve. If you look at it in terms of education, that last year, the disbursement that I got for my constituency, we were able to make, despite the small amount of money, we were able to disburse about 30 million shillings for bursaries, particularly for about 5,000 students who have applied both in colleges and tertiary institutions and secondary schools. The government, despite its effort to provide free secondary schools for those in day secondary schools, the amount that had been disbursed was not significantly enough for them to provide for free secondary day as alleged by the government. It was therefore our intervention to make sure that those in day secondary schools are able to get their food and their daily meals in their respective schools by us augmenting the money that had been allocated to them. Last year, in that financial year, I was able to start 3 secondary schools, particularly for girls, which is still having a problem for 3-day schools. One in Jugbaro, another ward, and in Wagbari, and another one in Koroparar this year. That significantly improved the enrollment of girls' secondary schools in my constituency. If you look at the policy that the government have been able to develop this year of 100% transition without any support to schools and any infrastructure improvement was an ill-prepared policy by the government of Kenya. Yet it made us support and develop the schools and the classrooms so that we can be able to have the 100% policy of children going from primary to secondary schools. This government, without proper consultation, that developed policies without providing the necessary infrastructural support is negating the small MEAGA funding that we have for bursaries. I will urge the government to confirm and work in tandem with our locations that we have, and any policy that we will be able to develop should work in tandem with the CDF funding. Lately, when the schools were opened, everybody was willing and prepared to get the support that was always ready. Today, as we speak, we only managed to get 10 million shillings against student application of 5,000. If you look at that, surely, are you going to provide the secondary schools, or are you going to provide for the tertiary and for the college students? This has put us in a very precarious position for us members of parliament to determine the flow of funding and how we'll be able to disperse it. I will urge this government of Kenya, if the rationale of the CDF is extremely very good, we urge them to give a priority in terms of disbursement of money from Treasury so that we give this funding a priority for it to work well for other Kenyans. If today we have only 4 months to the expiry of this financial year, and we only managed to get 20 million shillings out of the money that we were able to call, then that means we will not be able to significantly support the desired objectives of CDF. So as a recommendation, we'll be able to suggest, as has earlier been suggested by other members of parliament, this money should be provided for in quota. Or the first year when the fund is going to be released, we get 50%. And the subsequent years, months be provided for 25%. That will be able to make us significantly cover the priority project that has been designed for us. So, indeed, I will ask the Treasury to make a priority for CDF funding. This idea of keeping money and waiting when the need is already there and the schools have been opened is something that has put us in a very precarious position, and we need to change. We were able to use the funding for CDF also for security matters. If you remember, the early part of this year, we had incidences where teachers were killed in our respective counties, particularly in my constituency, 2 teachers were killed. It made it difficult for us, and it became necessary for me to start teachers' houses, particularly in the AP camps and the police camp in the region. Further to that, the line items which had been confined, other than the emergency and the issue of schools and security, there are other basic needs which normally come around, and we feel the line items should be significantly improved so that they can be able to cover issues of women, issues of poverty alleviation can be included so that we can have a significant impact on the lives of the people we represent. Other than confining it to security, education, and emergency, we find those 3 line items to be extremely very low. So we'll urge, as a recommendation further to this amount of money, that we have serious other lines which can have significant improvement in the lives of the people. Otherwise, CDF is there to stay. CDF is significant enough, and it has brought remarkable improvement in the lives of the people we represent. We will only recommend further improvement in the amount of money that we will be able to get. We have also realized that the 2.5%, which has also been given for equalization money, is still lacking and may not have the intended purpose. We will say, as much as it's a constitutional provision for equalization money to be in the Constitution, we suggest, as a further amendment, that we plow back that amount of money, which is the equalization, to the CDF for those respective counties that have been earmarked for, so that we can have significant improvement in the amount of CDF. Thank you very much.
Royal, the Honorable Thuku Kwenya, member for Kinango. Not desiring to be present, I will give this opportunity to the Honorable Passaris, member for Nairobi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to the report on the disbursements of funds by NGCDF. presented by the chairman, Mauka Maore. It's a bit disturbing to hear about the monies that have not been distributed or dispersed to the board for onward disbursement to the various members of parliament. And we occasionally hear government saying that monies are returned unspent. It is a shame that the monies that will be returned unspent are probably the ones that have not been disbursed within the financial year. I honestly pray that the monies that he's expecting to get over 1 billion before March will be dispersed, because CDF has helped a lot in terms of enhancing devolution, because what happens is with CDF, I think most of the members of parliament focused on building offices to start off with, where the constituents can access them, and that's important. And the staffing as well are put in the offices. The CDF fund also has helped with schools. We have free education, but we don't have classrooms in a lot of places. And for instance, in Nairobi, we have a school, Uhuru Boys in Embakasi West, and we have Ngara Girls, where projects were started, but previous members of parliament in the previous parliaments, and up to today, these projects have not been completed. So I think it's in order to ask for the list of incomplete projects, so that government can look at a way to have money put for these projects, because you find that MPs normally want to start new projects rather than continue with the ones that were started by previous members of parliament. In Ngara Girls, we've got a social hall that stands incomplete, and in Uhuru Boys, we've got a wall that hasn't been completed because their interests in trying to grab the public land. And we have a danger if we don't have funding to ensure that we secure our school compounds of land being taken right under our noses. It's happening everywhere. It's happened in the past. We have community land that was in Mukuru, Kwaruben, that was meant for the community and should have been building schools. A primary school was built by donors, and right now, because there was no wall to protect that land, we cannot have a secondary school because the land was allocated to a politically correct member of the public. So I stand to support this report, and I also believe that there is need for more money. To raise that fund would be good, because the MPs definitely have a lot on their plate. I mean, how do you decide which school to fund and which school not to fund when all of them require the same thing? They require classrooms. We talk about ICT centers. We don't have rooms for ICT centers. We need special units for the disabled. There's no money for that. And you can't choose one ward against another. And when we look at oversight and public participation, I think there is a need to ensure that you have money specifically for oversight and public participation. So I stand to support the bill, the report. Thank you.
Honorable members, I've heard from the previous motion, the one that was on the report on audited financial statements for constituencies in Kisumu County. That was our order number 10. And in this one, all the members seem to be of the mind and of the opinion that CDF resources should be more or less doubled. But I did not hear any member making contribution to the report of the Budget Appropriations Committee on Budget Policy Statement and Debt Management Strategy for 2019-2020 and the medium term, which was laid on the table. I did not hear anybody proposing to amend it so that we can take in those very good intentions to increase the contributions to the share of funds.
This makes it very organized, and it makes sure that resources are not misused. Honorable Speaker, when I say this, of course, I'm comparing it with what we are seeing in the counties, where a lot of money is being used, and the impact on the ground is so small. Honorable Speaker, I would like to comment on the equal distribution of funds to all constituencies, where all constituencies in this country are being given an equal amount of money. I must say that I was in the 11th Parliament when this happened, and it is something, Honorable Speaker, that it needs to be relooked. I would like to give an example of my constituency, which has over 270 primary schools, with 2 sub-counties, with over 270 primary schools, and more than 70 secondary schools. And I believe that there must be other constituencies that are this unique. It is so difficult for me and for many members to be able to share 100 million to so many institutions. But as much as we are doing, I would like to say that the way it was being done before, it was much better, because it looks at the land mass, it looked at the poverty levels, and this made some constituencies which are bigger and which have so many institutions get much more than the others. So it is something that the chair can review. Honorable Speaker, I would also like to comment about leadership in terms of our managers. I think it is important for the committee to note that when a manager is not effective in a constituency and the Member of Parliament makes a report, I have had 5 constituencies being mentioned that they have not been able to deliver. Even they have not even brought their projects for this financial year to be approved. Most of the times, it will not be because the Member of Parliament is not working, but it will be that there is somebody who is managing that constituency who is not available. What happens when a manager is not working? Most likely they are transferred to the next constituency, where they are likely to do the same mess. So it is something that the board needs to look at so that it can either train them or be more strict with the managers so that they can do their job. The other one is about release of funds. I know that there are constituencies which are behind, and there are members of Parliament who are working extremely hard. Like for my constituency, I found a constituency which was behind by 2 years. So we keep on trying to catch up with others, and I've seen now we have been able to catch up. I would like to thank the board members, the Secretariat of CDF for giving Kitui South constituency support. We have been able to do a Kenya Medical Training College using CDF. We are currently doing a teacher training college, among other institutions that I do not think they would have been done if we did not push them through CDF. Honorable Speaker, I would like also to say that prompt acquisition of this money or availing this money in good time is extremely important, and making it easier for members to get the money without having to go and ask for it. So I would like to ask the CEO, who has actually been working very hard, that he needs to put a lot of pressure to the directorates to make sure that they are more effective. Honorable Speaker, I do not know whether I'll be wrong to say that the CEO for CDF has been enacting capacity for 8 years. I do not know whether there is any other office in this country where a CEO can be enacting capacity for almost 10 years. I think it makes it difficult for a person, when they know they're enacting capacity, to make some decisions. So this is something that Treasury needs to handle, and also the committee needs to put a lot of pressure. And also we are asking questions. What is there that makes Treasury not to just make this decision about the CEO CDF? And we know that he has been doing a very good job. So this needs to be voiced. And I would like also to call upon other members of Parliament so that we can also push together to make sure that we see a CEO who is not on acting capacity, somebody who can make the right decisions. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, I would like to say that I have seen children from extremely poor families make their way to universities and get degrees and get jobs. I have seen children who are orphaned go to university and get jobs through CDF. So I would like to say that this is a noble idea, and I would like to thank the people, the proponents of CDF, and I'd like to say that this is a fund that needs to be increased because it has proven that it can be effective in this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity.
Very well. I think the issue of the acting CEO for CDF board has been raised in this House on many occasions. The board was not well. I think, and I hope that the chair of this committee will take it up so that it is resolved one way or the other. We shall have contribution from the Honorable Odhiambo Akoth, member for Suba North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I support the report and also join the other members who are saying that CDF is indeed one of the best initiatives that has been done in this or undertaken in this country. The only tragedy, Mr. Speaker, is that we have not celebrated the Member of Parliament that actually came up with this noble idea. And Mr. Speaker, perhaps one of the things that we missed, or the misstep we had when we came up with the devolution, is perhaps we needed to have undertaken economic devolution as opposed to taking the wide form of devolution we did. Why am I saying that? Is, Mr. Speaker, I would just imagine if the amount of money that is going to counties for development were to go to CDF, I think this country would change significantly. And Mr. Speaker, I know that despite what is out there in the public, CDF fund is one of the funds that has gone a lot of changes, tremendous improvement, and it is one of the best administered funds in this country. And within a year, period of 1 year, you can actually say what result it has produced. Indeed, when I became a member of parliament, I was actually amazed. Some of these things look simple, but I was amazed at the first batch of funds that were given, and then I went back 3 months later and there was a classroom. It looked like Alibaba, or I don't know which of those fairy tales we had, where you wave the magic wand. It's not Alibaba, I can't remember which one, but you wave Aladdin. Thank you. It's good to sit next to learned people like my friend Pasaris, where you wave the magic wand and suddenly, lo and behold, there's a classroom. So CDF has actually produced miracles like that. Mr. Speaker, I know I spoke to the similar motion, so I won't say much, but I want to overemphasize on one thing. One, as members of parliament, sometimes I know because we are busy, we forget our role, me included. Sometimes we are guilty of speaking to ourselves. Every person who is speaking here is acknowledging that there are two faults with CDF. There are many others, but the most significant one is the issue of oversight, because the role of the Member of Parliament is primarily oversight of the funds. And we have fund account managers that most times are very difficult, because you tell them this is the way it should go, they want to go their own ways for their own reasons. And Mr. Speaker, the MP is not enabled to do their oversight role. And we speak a lot, and we tell the committee, Mr. Speaker, sometimes we must stop speaking and we must act. So I am bringing an amendment to the CDF Act that will enable us to have funds to oversight, undertake our oversight roles as members of parliament. Yet there are no funds for public participation. So when you go to these constituencies, you have to release your own money, you have to pay the public for any soda, you have to undertake every activity that the government should actually do when they are undertaking public participation. So I am bringing another amendment to put funds to public participation, because it is not in order for members of parliament to be using their own money to do government work. And that is where a lot of times, for those of us who have studied anti-corruption measures, you tempt people to be corrupt, because then you want to get your money into either those funds or others so that you can facilitate your work, so that you end up looking like you are stealing when you're actually doing government work, Mr. Speaker. And we should not be made to start doing innovative work around CDF. Let government work be done properly, using government funds. If it is public participation, it's spelled as public participation, and fund put the same way for oversight. Mr. Speaker, another thing that members have spoken to is also the issue of 100% transition that is raising challenges. There are schools that before were pretty okay until we moved to the 100% transition, which for me as a person who has worked in this sector of child rights before is actually an excellent thing, because we have been pushing for the EFA goals and especially on issues of transition and completion rates. And Mr. Speaker, for us to actually realize that, we must have classrooms, because we can't go some steps forward and some steps backward. Mr. Speaker, one of the issues that I got little time to speak to last time and I wanted to speak to is that there's a trend that sometimes you want fund account managers either stealing, which then gets blamed to the member of parliament, or over using money or getting over expenditure on admin. And when they overexpend on admin, it actually eats on projects. Now, the fund account manager is not an employee of the member of parliament. My role is oversight. So as the member of parliament of Suba North, where I find that there's an over-expenditure on administration that eats on funds for Suba North people, or a fund account manager steals money that eats into funds meant for Suba North, I don't care whether the board gets the money, but it must go back to Suba North. It doesn't matter how far it dates. The monies that may be lost in Suba North must go back to projects in Suba North, because I was not party to stealing, neither were the people of Suba North party to stealing. And that is one of the amendments I am bringing. The board must find means, because then it is up to them to make sure that their employees do not put their hands in public coffers, and then members of parliament get blamed for such things. Mr. Speaker, another issue that has arisen, which is linked to that, is also the issue of supervision, that when you sometimes speak to the board, they say that their challenge is they don't have sufficient staff. Let them find a way of sorting it out, but our funds must work well. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that is of concern to me is on pending projects. When we were asked as members of parliament to forward pending projects, I went to my entire constituency and asked for every pending government project and brought. Now, Suba North, we are being told, spread all of them out in the next 3 years. You find that sometimes they may have been pending in one ward. So it means development stops in all the other wards because we are completing projects which I'm not the one who started and I'm not the one who left incomplete in my term. So, Mr. Speaker, the government must commit special funds beyond NGCDF funds to complete government projects that date beyond a period of time, 5 years, 3 years, because it's not in order that, the example I like giving is that you find the President Kibaki came with his own vision. You cannot expect President Uhuru Kenyatta to further the vision of President Kibaki. He has his own agenda, which is furthering. So it is not fair to also expect us to push the vision of somebody else. We can complete the project because they further the issues of our constituency, but there must also be projects that align themselves to the strategic plan. Every constituency has developed a strategic plan. And those strategic plan, I'm sure there's no constituency that provides in their strategic plan one strategic objective, which is to complete incomplete projects. So if we want to be true to our strategic plans, the government must provide special funds in order to enable us to complete those incomplete projects. And finally, I want to re-emphasize the issue of equalizing funds. Mr. Speaker, sometimes we've been challenged, and I want to congratulate my good brother and friend, Honorable Ken Okoth, for the good work he's doing in Kibra. And sometimes we are challenged and told, why can't we do the same work? He has 9 schools, I have 146, same amount of money. He can take all his money and build 5 schools in 1 year. How can I do that? With 146 schools against 9 schools. So he's doing an excellent job, and I would do if I had the same amount of money and same number of schools. So there must be a balance that takes into account all the parameters that one of the members spoke about. Population, schools, terrain, and all poverty, and all marginalization, historical marginalization, amongst others. Thank you, I support.
The Honorable Garane Hire, member for Lagdera.
Lagdera. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute to the report by the Committee on National Government Constituency Development Fund. From the outset, I want to support this report, and I want to commend the committee for bringing to the floor of the House a wonderful report. Honorable Speaker, everywhere you go in this country, there is a success story about development on the funds by CDF. Be it construction of classrooms, renovation of existing infrastructure, construction of houses for security officers, and many other wonderful things. But Honorable Speaker, barely 3 months before the end of the financial year 2018-2019, disbursement to the constituencies stands at 25%. This is very painful. I think there is a deliberate way by the Treasury to sabotage the disbursement of the funds to constituencies. Honorable Speaker, their Treasury is quick to disburse funds to ministries and agencies that, that do not even spend, the monies, and they are returned back to the exchequer at the end of the financial year. CDF allocation for the 290 constituencies is barely above 30 billion. And I don't know the reason why Treasury is holding on to these funds. It's painful. There are a lot of challenges in the constituencies. There are a lot of developments that are pending in the constituencies. So it's really baffling to see why these funds has not been disbursed on time. Honorable Speaker, I came from my constituency over the weekend, and barely almost all secondary going students, save for those who are day scholars, are out of school. They are idle at home. My constituency is, in a very harsh, region. It is one of the, hardest hit when it comes to, drought. In this dry season, and considering the fact that 95% or almost 100%, actually 100% of the population that live there are pastoralists, and they depend on livestock for educating their children. You can imagine now the magnitude of the problem when there is no market for their livestock. They depend on CDF. In the teacher training colleges, I have encouraged and managed to enroll 47 students from my constituency. None of them is able.
The other committees. So without the oversight committee, really we are likely to get bad, reports, probably with audit queries or issues coming up, which will be minimized if there was an oversight committee, because the oversight committee will make sure that every coin is put into use, and where there are issues, they are sorted out on ground before even the audit reports come out. Then I want to support the Honorable Minnie Oriambo with the amendments, and I believe we'll work together. I know she's very good in proposing amendments, and we can work as a team, the lawyers in Parliament and then the other interested parties or people, or such that our members who are interested, we can work together to screen the statute together and then come up with amendments so that we can strengthen it and make it serve us better. There is an issue of considering the current situation in Treasury. I'm sure it's a tough work, and I believe all members of the committee and all of us should work with the acting CEO to make sure that these monies are delivered here. Every opportunity we meet Treasury, and Treasury comes quite often here, we need to remind them of these balances of CDF which have not been released. And then the issue of emergencies, Mr. Speaker. The emergency funding is quite minimal. The monies on sports is quite minimal. Monies on environment is quite minimal. But in a lot of occasions, you have emergencies happening in one constituency or another. And I believe it should be able to be configured in a way that when there is an emergency, a school's roof is blown off, or there is a flooding in a constituency, the team on ground, the PMCs should be able to move fast and be able to mitigate that particular emergency as soon as possible. And finally, there is a pending government projects, some of which have been hanging for quite a while. I believe we really need to work on them and together with the committee and the treasury and the board, so that, Mr. Speaker, we can serve. I really want to support and thank the chairperson of this committee and his team. They have done a very good job. They have presented a very good report, and I want to encourage them to carry on. They are really serving the nation and Parliament. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Purely on seniority basis, I will allow the Honorable Angwenyi to make his contribution.
Speaker, for giving me a chance to contribute on this report. Mr. Speaker, people might think I'm trying to be proud, but I'm actually proud in the sense that I brought CDF motion and CDF bill to this country. Myself and Engineer Karue, the former member for Kibepiri. At that time, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, no lawyer wanted to prepare the bill for us. We had to hire Gasheru from England. That's how, because more then, if you are seen to be opposed to him, even if you are a private lawyer, you might not get business in this country. So they refused to take it. But fortunately, and we passed that bill, and the chairman, current chairman was there, was then a member of Parliament. We passed the bill, but Moi could not assent to it. He returned it to us. We are not able to override his veto. But fortunately, during the discussion of the bill, the Honorable, the former President, Mwai Kibaki, was the leader of opposition. And he had praised us. Why didn't the Kenyans elect these two young men? Then I was a young man. These two young men, I'm still young. Well, I know my age. Anyway, then I was a young man. And they said, why didn't the Kenyans elect these two young men? Long time ago, Kenya would have developed. But when we lost, when it was not approved.
What is out of order? The Honorable Angwenyi, just hold your horses.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hate interrupting my senior, and who is also my brother, because the Abasuba and the Abagusi are brothers. And because I've said that, I can see now he has followed the rules of procedure and sat down when I'm talking, despite the seniority. Mr. Speaker, would I be in order, given the role that my honorable brother undertook, Honorable Angwenyi, in the CDF, bringing up this noble CDF Act with Honorable Karue, that the Speaker of the National Assembly, that we put a proposal to the Speaker of the National Assembly, that they be specially honored for their work. Would I be in order, Mr. Speaker?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Speaker, I've just said.
The Honorable Angwenyi.
Mr. Speaker, I was giving you a background history.
Yeah, yes,
which
very
is
well,
important.
very well, but she raised a point of order, and I think she was proper to stand in her place, and it is still within your power and really the power of the House to honor the Honorable Angwenyi and any other person that it deems to be deserving of such honor.
Okay.
So the Honorable Akoth, the humble member for Suba, it is within your power to do that, to bring such a motion. The Honorable Angwenyi, proceed to make your contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hope the powers that be have had sentiments, and they can appoint Engineer Karue to some position in this country, especially to be a chairman of the CDF board. Engineer Karue, he tried to run for governorship, but he could not make it, and he's at home. But, Mr. Speaker, what I want to say is this. Eventually, as God could arrange, Kibaki won the elections 2002. And both myself and Engineer Karue were re-elected. So we revived our bill. But when we went to see him, he called him Honorable Muiraria, who was the Minister for Finance, and told him, can we take this young people's bill? And the Muiraria said, our covers, we found them empty. That Moi had emptied all the covers, there was no money. But Kibaki convinced him to take it and asked us to accept two things. One, to reduce the minimum from 5% to 2.5%. And the two, to give the bill to Miradia to be a government bill instead of a private member's bill, which we did, and the bill was passed. That's what our Kenyans are enjoying today. I heard somebody say early on that actually checks used to be paid to members of parliament. Never. It was never done. That was being done in South Africa. And we tried to borrow from there, but we could not pass it through here in this parliament. So the members of parliament were never paid checks to their accounts to go and use them in the CDF projects. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I've seen the report is a very good report. And I wish this House can really support this committee so that we demand our fair share of the national budget for these CDF projects. I know, for example, the national budget last year, the year ending in June this year, it was 1.7 billion. If you calculate 2.5% of 1.7 billion, it will be 42 billion, not like 3 billion. So we are owed 11 billion. And we are owed in a parliament which has got a power to approve or disapprove the budget. I can't understand that. Mr. Speaker, there are certain projects which had been undertaken by CDF committees in various constituencies. But before, the governors went to court and were given certain services and the functions were removed from national government to the counties. For example, building of dispensaries and health facilities, building or developing water sources, cattle dips, agricultural facilities. They were undertaken, the governors went to court, and the court decided that they are going to be done by the devolved governments, and therefore CDF cannot do them. But those projects, some of them had been undertaken, and they were halfway done, or some portions of it have been done, but now stay there as white elephants, because the governors never took them up. At least in where I come from, they never took them up. I believe we have got the powers of the budget. Can this House
of this particular committee for a good report on the CDF, and also move fast to indicate that the CDF has been a very important game changer insofar as development is concerned in the rural areas. Before CDF, we did not see development in certain quarters within the rural areas. But like in my constituency of Muhaya, when CDF came in, since the times of Honorable Marende, who was seated where you are sitting now, and later on to Honorable Wilbur Tichiro, who is now the governor of Vihiga, we were able to see so many changes which went all the way to help in development so far, and more specifically in the areas of education and security. In fact, today, the CDF becomes the face of Kenya's development insofar as education is concerned. Without the CDF funds, then most of our schools, both primary and secondary, would be in very bad status. CDF has made us see, for instance, in my constituency, Muhaya, see all schools now go permanent, and we no longer have schools that are clay-made. And this is what is also happening in the entire Kenya. So it gives a face of Kenya in terms of development, especially in education and security. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, it is my submission that, as the chair did indicate, that number one, these funds should be sent to the constituencies on time. And therefore, the backlog existing must be cleared with soon so that the constituencies can get this money. When I looked at the table and its report, in Muhaya, I noticed that we are supposed to get 109 million, and currently we have only received 30 million. And there's a balance of 79 million which has not yet been transferred to us. I also got very keen because, Honorable Speaker, you are my immediate neighbor, and also looked at Luanda, and I saw the similar situation where Luanda had received only 30 million instead of 109 million. And therefore, I want to join the rest of the members in agitating and actually reinforcing that these funds be sent to constituencies on time. Because of the fact that it's the CDF that currently is being used to pay fees, especially in the day schools. And with a 100% transition of students from primary to secondary, the day schools are actually housing more than 72.8% of all the students in the second schools. And this is a statistic that has been released by the Ministry of Education, and therefore a fact. And these day schools depend on the CDF for facilitation of fees in form of bursaries. And it must go on record that therefore, that the members of parliament have become surrogate parents. And therefore, on behalf of government, they are surrogate parents for all the students of Kenya because they are the ones who pay the fees. And if they don't pay that particular fees, then the students will not go to their schools. Honorable Speaker, I want to therefore also ask the chair of this particular committee that we could borrow from what we did with government funds going to schools. It was very difficult for governments to send funds to schools through the ministry. And therefore, we went ahead to
who miss schools because of lack of funds. And I want to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to thank the chairman of CDF and his committee, Mr. Speaker. They have done a very recommendable job. And Mr. Speaker, sometimes I blame even myself and other members of this House, Mr. Speaker, like the 11th Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I think us as a House, we failed. When Honorable Lesonet brought this motion of equitability, Mr. Speaker, you cannot compare a constituency from Nyakach or a constituency from Kwanza constituency with the either Stare constituency here or Orangata constituency. These are the constituencies that have already been developed since independence, Mr. Speaker, like constituencies that are in Nairobi County. And our colleagues are the ones who influenced the equitability, knowing that there are constituencies from rural that are poor. So, Mr. Speaker, it is like sometimes you are given a poison to drink and then you just take a poison and drink to kill yourself. Because when it came on the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker, although I think I was not there, but it is us ourselves who shot down, who agreed that the equitability should be there, Mr. Speaker. But all the same, Mr. Speaker, sometimes we delay to get the money from Treasury. CDF, sometimes delay to get the money from Treasury. And there are some people in Treasury, Mr. Speaker, who think that the money in Treasury is their either mother's money or father's money, I don't know. But this is the money for the public. And you see somebody will even, not only CDF, but even other ministries, Mr. Speaker, they close something called IFMIS to delay the money for the ministries to use the money, Mr. Speaker, until when the budget is coming nearer, is now when they will release the money. There's a lot of misuse with the money, Mr. Speaker, in Treasury. And as a parliament, Mr. Speaker, we need to look into this very seriously. Because sometimes either also the money can come and then the AIE delay for even 2 months. You cannot access the money, it is on the account, and the people in the constituencies are suffering, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, there are so many ways which we need to look into, and we need to decide as members of parliament of this House, Mr. Speaker, about the CEO. Mr. Speaker, you can also assent to that Mr. Mbuno has acted for too long. 8 years, Mr. Speaker, is a very long time for somebody staying in acting capacity. Sometimes his morale goes down, and the chair is here. They need to compel the board, the CDF board, to come and appear before them, and also together with the finance committee to call the minister, Rotich, also to state why this CEO has acted for all this long. It's unfair, and he's a human being like me, like any other human being, Mr. Speaker. So sometimes we need to think twice and consider that he should be also given his position as an MD, so that he can make his decisions when time is available. Mr. Speaker, we need to change the act. With the money, Mr. Speaker, 2.5% is very little money for us as Parliament for constituencies, Mr. Speaker. Last time we were taken to court by few governors who are greedy, and how they have charmed themselves, Mr. Speaker, from 15% to 30%. And they just wanted to take monies to the counties so that they can steal, because it has been proven that it is true that the counties are stealing money. You saw the other day, we saw the other day when the governor had stolen 2 billion and even more. So, Mr. Speaker, and with the mechanism that was put in place by government for CDF should also be put to manage the money in the counties, Mr. Speaker, because 30% is a lot of money. And these people, Mr. Speaker, even paying fees for our children, Mr. Speaker, they only pay 3,000 shillings for a child, for a student. And they call, public participation. They can go around, the governor goes around to meet all the people, and it's only for 3,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker, for a student, either for Form 1 or whatever student. But the CDF sometimes, like in my constituency, Mr. Speaker, I remember last month, we spent 15 million shillings paying a bursary. And there are students, Mr. Speaker, from families that are needy. We had to pay almost for 40 of them to give them full scholarship, Mr. Speaker. So this money is important. We need to raise it, not even 5%, Mr. Speaker, but even 6%, so that the money, this money is accountable by the people themselves, because when you build a school, the public will see that Honorable Wanyonyi has built a school in Kwanza, and when you pay for the child, for the fees, Mr. Speaker, or security, either chief's office or DOs, it is money that is accountable. So the government, Mr. Speaker, should give, and us ourselves should give ourselves more money, because we are not going to misuse. Mr. Speaker, I can see the rate is coming. Let me, Mr. Speaker, end there by urging my colleagues that we need to look into this CDF Act and change it and increase money for the CDF. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Kamuren. The Honorable Kamuren will make his contribution without any interruption. I believe this is
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Cameron, I need to just verify this.
Mr. Speaker, Cameron are many.
Just hold on.
They
The
are-
Honorable Cameron, just
thank you,
hold your
Mr.
horses.
Speaker.
Hold your horses. The Honorable Cameron, is this your maiden speech?
Yeah.
This is
Yes,
the
Mr. Speaker.
first time you're speaking in the House?
Yes, yes, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I will allow you to speak, but you must know the consequences. That if you have spoken before and you are taking this opportunity, then it will
Mr.
be...
Speaker, I'm very clear.
Very well. Proceed. If
Yes.
it is your first time to speak,
Thank you,
proceed.
Mr. Speaker. I want first of all to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to thank God for getting that opportunity to serve the people of Baringo South. I want again to thank the people of Baringo. As a lot of challenges. One being security, second being the youths of Baringo South who are not employed and they are really suffering for so many years. Women who are not empowered, Mr. Speaker. Infrastructures in terms of roads, education, healthy, floods, titling in areas like Mochongoi. So there are so many things, Mr. Speaker, that is forcing and making the people of Baringo South suffer. Mr. Speaker, in terms of infrastructures, Mr. Speaker, we have roads all over because the roads that we have during the raining season, farmers don't have ability to transport their things to the right destinations. Why? Because of the poor roads. We had requested the government to assist us with the tarmac road from Karandi all through, Mr. Speaker, to Marikat. And we want to appreciate that already that road has started. The construction, the contractor has started in Karandi. The other day, they have started coming towards Mochongoi, that's 10 kilometers. We are hoping that towards the end of this year, they might be in midway towards Marikat. Still, we need roads from Mokutane to Ramaja to Nyimbei to Subukia, a main road, so that the people who are in that valley can be reaching all the way to Nakuru and going back in the evening. And it will open up, specifically because there is a challenge of security in that region. Mr. Speaker, there is also another major road, all through from Sokta to Kibingor to Kuriama and going through to Pekibon, to Luongo, Itebei, all through to Ponde, where if we get that road tarmacked, it will be great because it will open up the lower part of that constituency. Mr. Speaker, there are other major roads within, and it will be documented and it will be forwarded as expected. If they cannot consider some regions unbalanced, when you say qualifications, yes, there are so many Kenyans who are qualified, but it reaches a time, Mr. Speaker, that they should consider also according to constituencies, so that others may not be disadvantaged. And there is also some connections. So the other day I was trying to picture the employment of our youths, and I discovered that we are so much behind compared with other constituencies. So I call upon the Public Service Commission to consider Baringo South when they are employing the youths. In terms of women empowerment, there is a lot, and I expected those departments of the government that are dealing with women empowerment to come in and support and assist the women in Baringo South. Mr. Speaker, in education sector, where CDF holds very well, and I am supporting the need and the position of increasing the 2.5 to 5% or even more than that. Because right away, there is tendency from the locals, from the citizens of this nation, because they have seen what CDF has done in our schools. So right now, they have left everything to CDF. And because now they have appreciated the work of the national government, I don't see why we cannot support that and increase the allocation. The CDF has done very well in terms of building of schools in Baringo South, And I am going on the same route. We want to improve education in my constituency so that we can have quality education and inclusive education. And we perform very well. And we take those who are to go to national schools and those who are to join universities, both primary and secondary. Mr. Speaker, issues to do with food security, educations, we are doing well. I want to thank the PS. The other day of education, he came there, and we are doing very well. We call upon the partners to assist the outcome of the research that was done. Mr. Speaker, on Mochongoi, Mochongoi is a settlement scheme. Already people are living there. We are in the process, and I want to call upon the systems of the government, more so in the Ministry of Land, that they support us so that the people can acquire their titles and live like other Kenyans and use their titles as expected. On issues to do with floods, I know it's known all over Kenya that when it's raining season, we have problem in El Chamus, those sections of Ngambo, sections of Salabani, sections of Loboi, and we have called upon the government to assist it, and I believe something is happening. The last one, Mr. Speaker, is issue to do with security. Mr. Speaker, it's known. The other day, one week ago, we lost 5 lives of students who were on half-term because they were killed by bandits from Tiati constituency. Bandits with guns. They came during the night and shoot all of them at a go. On the last Saturday, we were burying 5 bodies. Mr. Speaker, I'm calling upon the government to come in and use their systems to arrest these culprits because they are known. Mr. Speaker, I'm told even some of them are children of the leaders of that locality in Tiati. Mr. Speaker, the government has the capacity. I'm calling upon the government to make sure that they have arrested those who killed these children and the people from Tiati who are living in Rukus. Rukus is a location in Baringo South. They should be returned back because Baringo South is peaceful constituency. Same to those who are living in Laramoru. They should go back to their constituency and leave our constituency without any interference. Mr. Speaker, we have reopened the schools which were there in those security zones, and we are going on very well. We call upon the Devolution Ministry who has been supporting us to support us with the relief food, because these people who are IDBs for a long time, they don't have any money, any food. They need to be supported and be assisted. Mr. Speaker, I have requested the Minister of Interior, our CS, Dr. Matiang'i, to give us the 45 NPRs that is needed. And we have given out everything that is needed by his ministry. We are waiting on only his signature so that we can have these people to cut our schools and protect our people. Mr. Speaker, I call upon the leadership, Dr. Matiang'i, the Deputy President, the President, to visit us and see what's happening in terms of security. We cannot, the members of parliament don't control security, but the national government controls the security. So I call upon them to come and visit us and understand the situations that we are undergoing. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, my brother, who is a member of parliament for Tiati, should also improve on how he is inciting his people against my people, Mr. Speaker. I don't like that, and I call upon the government to investigate him on his behavior. We cannot be singing peace while somebody else is inciting his community against the other communities. He has disturbed Elgeyo Marakwet, disturbed Turkana, disturbed Laikipia, disturbed Baringo. Now he's working on my side. So this interference is not right, Mr. Speaker. We have a president. This country has a government, and we should respect it. If I am offending and inciting people, then I should be arrested so that the others can live in peace. But he cannot come and behave as if he's good and he's messing up with us. Mr. Speaker, Mukutane is in Baringo South. And I don't shout because there is maps and there is everything. He cannot incite people that is telling people that issues to do with boundaries. This one is not boundaries, this is a business. And we know the culprits Government knows and they have the systems. So I call upon the government of Kenya to stop and let our people in Baringo South live